The night everything began, the sky looked like it was tearing open above my small cabin on the outskirts of the valley. The wind roared as if it carried ancient voices, and the rain slammed against the roof so hard I thought it would break through. I was trying to reinforce the windows when it crashed something. Between thunder and a gigantic groany code so close that my hands trembled. I thought a tree had fallen, or that the ground itself had split open. But then I heard something else. It was a wet, uneven sound, like the silent crying of someone far too big to hide. I went outside, instantly soaked, flashlight in hand. The storm made everything confusing, a blur of shadows, water, and wind-twisting reality. That's when I saw her. Her gigantic silhouette emerged between the trees, kneeling, trying to shield herself from the downpour as best she could. She was at least 30 feet tall, maybe more, and yet she curled in on herself as if she were afraid of breaking the world with every movement. Her skin glowed under the rain with a warm, almost golden tone. Her dark hair fell like wet rivers over her shoulders, clinging to a dress torn by the storm. When she turned her head toward me, the beam of my flashlight reflected off her enormous, deep eyes filled with a human kind of exhaustion that froze me in place. Before we begin, I ask that you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us where in the world you're listening from. This helps us bring you more stories like this. Let's go. Please, she said, her voice soft yet resonant, trembling in the wind. I need shelter. My brain took a second to accept that I wasn't dreaming, that this gigantic woman was speaking to me, pleading. My cabin is small, I replied, barely audible against the roar of the sky. It doesn't matter, she said, placing a hand over her chest as if trying to steady the heartbeat of a body too big for the world. I just need a roof. Just a moment to breathe. The storm growled again, and something inside me gave way. I don't know if it was fear, compassion, or some strange instinct I couldn't have explained. I pointed toward the barn, the only structure large enough to offer her any kind of shelter. She nodded with relief and stood up, the ground trembling beneath her steps. Despite her size, her movements were delicate, as if she were afraid of damaging everything she touched. Inside the barn, she settled down with her knees bent, almost filling the whole space. I barely reached her shoulder as I stood in front of her, soaked and stunned. Rain hammered the wooden roof, but inside, the world felt quiet. She breathed deeply, as if the warm air inside the barn were bringing her back to life. Thank you, she said in a faint voice. Not everyone would help someone like me, someone like you, I repeated, not knowing how to process the phrase. She leaned toward me gently. Her eyes glowed with a melancholic mystery, as though they hid centuries of untold stories. My name is Alira, she said, and I didn't come here by accident. A chill ran down my spine. Outside, a flash of lightning lit up the barn for a second, outlining her gigantic face with an almost supernatural beauty yet filled with humanity. What do you mean? I asked, my voice cracking despite myself. Alira closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering courage. When she opened them again, they were filled with firm resolve. I've been looking for you. The world seemed to stop. Not the storm, not the wind, not even my heartbeat existed for a moment. For me, why she brought a hand the size of a small boat closer, placing it gently on the ground between us. Her fingers curled like protective petals. Because I need something only you can give me, she said, her voice low, full of meaning but without a single inappropriate hint. My throat went dry. What is it that you need? Her answer fell like soft thunder. A child, I couldn't move. I felt my mind trying to understand, hitting the absurd, then trying again. But her eyes, her enormous eyes, were filled with an ancient sadness, with an urgency that wasn't physical, but spiritual, almost prophetic. Before I could speak, she added, it's not about physical union or anything you should fear. What I'm seeking is something different. Something no giant can offer me. Something only a human with your heart can awaken. The storm kept raging outside. Inside the barn, all I could hear was my own breathing and the soft echo of her words. May I explain it to you? Alira asked. I swallowed hard. Yes, I said. Explain everything. The silence inside the barn was so deep I could hear the slow creaking of the wood. Swelling from the moisture, Alira breathed slowly, as if each exhale were an effort to keep her voice from trembling. I remained standing in front of her, unable to understand why a woman of her size, of her mysterious presence, had told me something so impossible. Start from the beginning, I murmured, trying to make my voice sound steadier than I felt. Alira tilted her head slightly, a gesture that, despite her size, carried a melancholic delicacy. Her dark hair fell like a wet curtain over her shoulders. My people are not what you imagine, she said. There are few of us, very few. We once walked these mountains without fear, visible to humans. But time changed everything. The villages grew, the forests shrank, and we became a myth so we wouldn't inspire fear. Her words echoed like fragments of an ancient tale. But even myths can go extinct, she continued. And that is what's happening to us. Our generations are born weak, without the spark that kept the giants alive through the ages. The way she said alive sent a strange chill through me. And what does that have to do with me? I asked, though part of me was afraid to hear the answer. Alira lowered her gaze. Her enormous eyes softened, glowing with an emotion that seemed too heavy for her to carry alone. Giants do not know life the way you do, she explained softly. Our birth does not occur in the human manner. We are created from a bond, a spiritual awakening that joins two compatible souls. For one of us to be born, strength is not enough. Something more is needed, something pure. She placed a hand over her chest, right where her heart beat like a distant drum. For years, I've felt a call, she said. A kind of echo vibrating inside me, guiding me to this valley, to this night, to you. I ran a hand across my forehead, unable to fully grasp it. You mean that? That your spirit is compatible with mine? She finished for me, in a whisper that filled the barn with a strange warmth. And that compatibility could give life to a new giant one strong enough to preserve what remains of my kind. I sat down on a bale of hay because my legs could no longer hold me. The idea hit me so hard I could barely process it. You're not talking about physical contact? I said, more like a plea than a clarification. No, she answered immediately. I would never ask that of you. Our way of creating life is different. It's a bond of energy, of emotion, of essence. I need your will, your trust, your connection. Without that, nothing happens. It was hard to believe, yet her sincerity was so tangible that dismissing it felt impossible. And why me? I asked. Out of millions of people, why a man living alone in a forgotten cabin? Alira smiled faintly. A smile so immense and so gentle that it transformed the entire atmosphere of the barn for an instant. The size of the spirit has nothing to do with the size of the world you live in, she said. I've felt your kindness from afar. You are protective by nature, even in solitude. You don't fear the unknown. You try to understand it before you judge it. That is not common. Her words struck something deep inside me, as if she had pulled them from thoughts I had never shared with anyone. The storm outside began to fade. The thunder drifted away, and the rain fell more softly now, as if the sky itself had grown tired. Alira took a deep breath, and her voice gained a note of vulnerability I never would have imagined hearing from someone so immense. I did not come to force you, she said. I came to ask for help. My species is dying, and I don't want to be the last. I felt her sadness like a weight in my own chest. It was impossible not to be moved. She, a giant, seemed more human than many humans I had met. I stood slowly and stepped closer to her hand, resting on the ground. The surface of her skin was warm, soft, and slightly trembling. I placed my palm on one of her fingers and she held her breath. Alira, I said, without looking away from her, I want to understand everything before I decide, but I'm not going to leave you alone tonight. Her eyes shimmered with a moisture the storm hadn't caused. "Thank you," she whispered. "What you need to know, I will show you, if you allow it." A faint electric chill passed through the air between us, as if something ancient were slowly awakening. Alira closed her eyes. "It will be easier if you trust me," she murmured. "I can take you into my memory, into my world." I stood in silence, feeling the weight of a destiny I had never asked for, one that seemed to have chosen me anyway. "Tell me what I have to do," I whispered. Alira opened her eyes. There was light in them. "Nothing," she said. "Just don't be afraid." When Alira told me not to be afraid, I felt the air inside the barn change in density, as if every particle were charged with something ancient and unknown. She closed her enormous eyes, and her breathing became slow, almost ceremonial. A soft glow emerged from the center of her chest, faint, at first, then steadier, like a sunrise trapped inside a heart. I didn't know whether I should step back or move closer, but my feet stayed rooted to the ground. Something in her presence held me gently, not with physical force, but with a deep, almost hypnotic calm. "I'm going to share my memory with you," she said, without opening her eyes. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "It won't be a dream. It will be a vision. You will see what I have seen." I swallowed. "Will it hurt?" "No," she answered, "but it may move you more than you expect." The glow spread slowly from her chest to her hand, the one resting open in front of me. I approached cautiously, guided by an intuition I couldn't tell if it was mine or hers. When I touched the tip of one of her fingers, a warm current ran up my arm, as if the air had turned into liquid for an instant, and then the world disappeared. It wasn't a smooth transition. It felt like I was ripped out of the barn and thrown into a whirlwind of light and wind. I opened my eyes, but I couldn't see my own body. I was suspended in a vast, vibrant space where impossible colors mixed with echoing voices from ages long forgotten. "Here it begins." I heard Alira's voice, not outside, but inside my mind, like a shared thought. The light shifted into a landscape. Mountains sculpted like natural cathedrals, forests that seemed to touch the sky, enormous rivers shining like mirrors. But the most striking part was them, the giants. They appeared walking among the trees as if they were part of them. Enormous women and men, all with the same warm light Alira carried in her eyes. Their movements were graceful, harmonious, almost like a dance. "This was our home," she said. "This is how we lived, in balance. We never needed to hide. We were silent guardians of the world." The scene changed. The giants gathered in luminous circles, and in the center of each one, a glow similar to the one that had come from Alira formed a small figure, new giant born from the spiritual bond between two beings. There was no pain, no fear, no physical contact, only energy, emotion, shared will. It was beautiful, but the vision darkened. The mountains began to crumble, not physically, but spiritually. The giants weakened. The inner lights they carried faded. New generations were born without glow, without strength, like fractured shadows. "Humans grew," said Alira. "They let their world consume them. The earth changed. Migration routes closed. Our vital flow, the energy we breathed from nature, became scarce." The vision twisted into a whirlwind of images. Giants fleeing deeper into the mountains, others disappearing into a luminous mist as if returning to an origin I couldn't understand. And then she appeared. Alira, younger, brighter, walking alone through endless valleys, searching for something or someone. "I've heard the call of human spirits before," she said, her voice trembling in my mind. "But none resonated with me like you." My heart pounded. It was strange. I had never believed in destiny, prophecies, or invisible bonds. But what I was seeing was impossible to deny. "Why me?" I asked again inside the vision, even though she had already tried to explain. The vision paused. Only a soft light remained, and Alira appeared before me in the form of her spirit, gigantic, but wrapped in a warm glow that made her seem almost ethereal. "Because your soul does not fear loneliness," she said, "nor silence, nor duty. Because your heart does not look outward, but inward, and giants are born from hearts like that. The whirlwind of light began to retract, pulling away from us. I felt a tug, as if something were pulling me back into the physical world. Alira, I murmured. What if I can't? What if I'm not enough for something this big? She smiled, a gesture filled with tenderness. I'm not seeking perfection, she said. Only truth. And in you, I found it. The light exploded in one final flash. I opened my eyes. I was back in the barn. My hand was still resting on her finger. She was breathing heavily, as if the vision had drained her too. She looked at me with a mixture of hope and fear. Now you understand, she said softly. But something is still missing. You haven't seen the price. Her expression froze my blood. What price? I asked, feeling that something enormous was about to be revealed. Alira lowered her gaze. Her voice cracked. The birth of a giant. She said slowly, always demands a sacrifice. The word sacrifice hung between us like a stretched rope about to snap. The barn, which moments ago had felt like a warm refuge, now seemed far too small to contain what I was about to hear. Alira took a deep breath, so deep the wooden boards groaned beneath her giant back. What kind of sacrifice? I asked in a thin voice. I didn't know if I wanted the answer, but I needed to hear it. Alira lifted her gaze. There was a sad glow in her eyes, not guilt, but ancient resignation. The birth of a giant, she said softly, requires balance. We draw energy from the spirit, not the body. But that energy doesn't appear from nothing. It must be offered. And when it is offered, something in the giver changes forever. My throat tightened. Change? How? She lowered her eyes as if it pained her to put it into words. I would never harm you, she whispered. I would never allow anything to destroy you. But giving an heir to my species means surrendering a part of your essence. A small part, but permanent. An emotion you would never feel the same way again. A cold shiver ran down my spine. What emotion? I asked. Alira stayed silent for far too long. Her massive fingers tensed against the floor, leaving grooves in the dust. It depends on the person, she said at last. Some lose their courage, others their sense of belonging, others their ability to love. I froze, an emotion torn away, an inner spark extinguished forever. It was worse than I expected, deeper, more human than any physical wound and me. I asked, barely breathing, what would I lose? Alira shook her head. I cannot know. Only the ritual reveals it. Her sincerity was so transparent it hurt. There was no trick, no manipulation. Just a hard truth she seemed to grieve herself. Have you lived it? I asked. The silence that followed was an answer. Alira lowered her eyelids slowly. Yes, she whispered. I was born from the sacrifice of two giants who never felt fear again. But it wasn't a sad loss. It was an act of love for a future they would never see. I clenched my fists. Part of me wanted to stand up, shout, run away. But another part, the same part that helped her in the storm, felt a burning compassion for her. The vision she had shared showed me a beautiful world, one fading slowly like sand slipping through giant fingers. And she, Alira, had carried alone the burden of finding a solution, of seeking me, of trusting me. And if I say no, I asked quietly. She closed her eyes, as if that question hurt more than any blow. Then, I will leave when the storm ends, she said, her voice trembling. And I will keep searching. Maybe I'll find another spirit, maybe not, but I will never force you. A distant rumble echoed, though the storm was nearly gone. I realized then that I was trembling not from cold, but from the weight of the decision forming in front of me. How long do I have to decide? I asked. Alira sighed, and her warm breath stirred the dust around me. Not long, she admitted. The spiritual bond can only form within 24 hours of the call that brought us together. After that, the echo fades. I looked toward the barn door. Outside, the gray sky was slowly brightening. The storm was leaving. Time was moving forward without waiting for either of us. There is something else, Alira said, her voice barely audible. The sacrifice isn't only yours. If you choose to help me, I would lose something too, something important. I looked at her, stunned. What would you lose? She swallowed a huge, deeply human gesture. My immortality. The word landed like a stone. Giants don't live forever, she explained, but we last for centuries. However, by joining my spirit with yours to create life, my cycle would accelerate. A giant wouldn't die. A new one would be born. But my time in this world would become much shorter. My heart lurched. She wasn't only asking for emotional energy. She was asking to share fate, Alira, I murmured. She tilted her head toward me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her giant eyes. I'm not asking you to decide now, she said. Just stay with me. A little longer. I don't want to face this night alone. I stepped closer. I placed my hand on her destiny in comparison, but steady. Alira closed her eyes, relieved. And then I understood. I wasn't choosing only the future of her species, but my own as well. Dawn began to illuminate the barn. The decision was approaching, and she looked at me with a whisper that shook my soul. If you accept, you must see the ritual. Not with your eyes, with your heart. The dawn slipped through the cracks of the barn like a golden thread, delicate, almost timid, as if afraid to interrupt what was happening between us. I still had my hand on Alira's warm skin, and she kept her eyes closed. Breathing with a calm I only understood later, it was the calm of accepted fear. The calm of someone willing to give everything without knowing what she would receive in return. I'm ready, I finally said, though my voice shook. Alira opened her eyes, and for an instant, what I saw in them was not the grandeur of a mythical being, but the purest humanity I had ever known. You don't have to do this, she said with absolute honesty. I know, I swallowed, but I couldn't live with myself if I let you walk away like this. Not after what you showed me. Not after everything you feel. Alira lowered her head slightly, and a tremor of emotion ran through her enormous body. Then, she murmured, I will perform the ritual with you. But you must know, once we begin, there is no turning back. I nodded. She placed her open hand on the ground, inviting me to climb. I walked onto her huge palm, and felt myself lifted with inconceivable gentleness. She held me at the height of her chest, right where the light had emerged the night before. Her heartbeat pulsed firmly, deeply, like an ancient drum marking the rhythm of an inevitable destiny. From now on, Alira said, you must keep your mind calm. The ritual needs no words, only truth. The air around us began to vibrate. A warm breeze swirled even though the barn doors remained closed. The glow reappeared, rising from the center of her chest, growing like a slowly awakening sun. I felt a soft pressure in the center of my own torso, as if an echo from within me were responding. Alira's light intensified, but it didn't blind. It was a light that seemed to understand me, envelop me, make me feel part of something I couldn't name. Let it in, she whispered. I closed my eyes and the world changed. I didn't see mountains or forests or giants. It wasn't a vision like before. This time, what appeared before me was my own inner self, my memories, my fears, my hopes. I saw my childhood, the times I was alone, all the choices that led me to live isolated in that valley. But I also saw something I had never seen clearly. A spark. Small, bright, persistent. A spark that had always been inside me, and that, without knowing it, had protected my spirit from the wear of the world. The spark that kept me going, even in solitude. Alira approached that spark not with hands, but with her essence. Her light surrounded it like an embrace, without touching it. Then I felt a question not spoken, but felt through emotion. May I take a part of this? May I share it? My heart tightened. That spark was my silent courage, my ability to rise every day even when nothing seemed to change. It was a deep piece of who I was. I took a deep breath. Yes, I murmured inwardly. Take it, but don't extinguish it. Just share it. Then it happened. My spark divided into two, without breaking, without pain. A part of it flew toward Alira's light, and her glow became stronger, more golden, more alive. And in that moment, I felt something new, a warm, growing energy, like a small star igniting between our souls, and I knew something was being born. The ritual ended with a deep exhale that I wasn't sure came from her or from me. I opened my eyes. The barn was filled with a soft glow, drifting like golden dust through the air. Alira was crying silently, tears shining like precious gems. We did it, she whispered. A new spirit has awakened. I felt a deep but sweet exhaustion, like after a long journey. And in my chest, a new peace, as if an empty space had been filled with something gentle and unknown. Alira lowered her massive forehead toward me, not touching me, just coming close. You don't know what you've just saved, she whispered. But you, I said, remembering the price, you'll lose time from your life. She smiled not sadly, but radiantly. I'll lose it to gain a future, she said. And I couldn't ask for a nobler destiny. The glow in her chest pulsed once, like a tiny heart inside her own. This will be my child, our child. But it will not grow in your world, nor depend on you. It will remain a spirit until it forms completely, in a place I must find. But it will live because of your bravery. The barn fell silent again, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. Alira rose slowly, making me grip her finger to steady myself. Her size, her presence, her light, everything felt sacred now. I must go, she said, but it won't be a goodbye. While my child grows, you will feel its presence, a soft echo inside your heart. The light on her chest shone one final time. I nodded, unable to speak. She turned to the barn door, opened it gently. The dawn lit her giant silhouette, wrapping her in gold. Thank you, she said, for sharing your essence. for not fearing me, for giving me hope. She stepped into the light, then another step. Each one felt like the beginning of a new story. Before disappearing among the trees, she turned back to me one last time. When the day comes that my child is fully born, she said, you will know. You will feel warmth in your chest, a heartbeat that isn't yours, and with a smile I will carry for the rest of my life, she added. That will be the day I return for you. I watched her go, gigantic, majestic, and for the first time since meeting her, part of me missed her. The valley fell silent. But inside my chest, a small spark remained alive, a soft echo of new life, an eternal bond. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and leave your like. It helps us keep bringing you more enchanting stories like this one to brighten your day. And tell us in the comments which city in the world you're listening from. See you next time.